I was dead for 60 seconds. When they pulled me back, I cried and begged them to stop, which makes no sense until I tell you what I saw. It wasn't even a dramatic thing. I went to the ER because my chest felt tight and my left arm was heavy. I thought I was being a baby. The triage nurse did the whole "it's probably anxiety" face, but they wired me up anyway. The room was cold and smelled like antiseptic and something sweet I couldn't place. There was some dumb TV show on in the corner. I remember the beeping. Then all of it slid sideways. The beeping jumped, my throat got wet and warm, and everything rolled away from me like I was being tipped out of a long tube. It wasn't pain. It was like stepping through a door into air that matched my skin. That's the only way I can say it. Warm. Easy. Familiar. I heard my mother's voice first. She's been gone 7 years. She said my name the way she used to when I was sick as a kid, soft and half laughing. There were other voices too, not words, more like the shape of words. My granddad. Mrs. Tran from next door. Even my stupid dog from when I was 12. I knew them, not with my ears. I was there, and they were there, and whatever was between was nothing. There was a choir in there too, but not like church. It was like the sound the TV makes when the channel won't lock, except it made me want to go forward. It wanted me. They did. I smelled lilies, heavy and clean, like the cheap spray they always used at funerals. But it wasn't creepy. I felt held. I knew I could rest. I knew it. "Come back," my mother said, and I moved toward her without feet, like my body already knew how. Then a hook yanked my ribs. Someone here said something like, "Charge to 200, and a woman yelled, "Clear," and the warmth cracked like thin ice. The choir slid out of key. I slammed back into the bed and barked air like a bad laugh. Hands were on me. A man with a shaved head leaned over me and said, "Stay with us." The TV was still on. The clock on the wall said 9:13. The smell of lilies stuck to the inside of my nose and it hurt. It actually hurt, like a bruise. I cried. I grabbed the woman's sleeve and I said, "Please, please, don't." She peeled my fingers off like gum. They told me later I was only gone for exactly a minute. 60 seconds flat from the first long tone to when my heart took again. They were proud of that. They watched me overnight. They ran the usual tests. My heart checked out. "Sometimes this happens," the doctor said. "Electrical blip. Stress. You're lucky." He had kind eyes that didn't touch the rest of his face. When he left, I tried to sleep, but every time I shut my eyes, my chest felt like a door someone kept trying. I put the call light on and asked the nurse if they used lilies in the cleaner. She said, "No, honey, that's the flowers on the desk in the family room," like I was making a joke. They sent me home with a bottle of beta blockers and a weak handshake. I told them about the voices. I told them about my mother. The nurse said people see all kinds of things. The doc said brains do fireworks when they run out of oxygen. He said taste might be off for a while from the meds. He said the ringing in my ears would go away. He called it tinnitus. He wrote it on a piece of paper so I wouldn't forget. Home felt wrong as soon as I walked in. I stood in my kitchen and looked around like I'd never seen it. Same fridge. Same stupid magnet from Myrtle Beach. But the colors were all a notch down, like someone turned the saturation dial. The red dish towel looked brick. The yellow mug looked beige. I put soup in the microwave. When it beeped, I tasted it, and it was just heat. No salt. No chicken. I dumped pepper into it until my nose stung, and it still tasted like warm water. I checked the time out of habit. The stove clock said 12:59. I stared at it. When it clicked to 1 o'clock, everything hiccuped. The lights didn't flicker, exactly. They did this tiny pulse. The second colon blinked, but slower. A cold draft slipped around my ankles and up my shins like someone opened the freezer. The choir came back, thin and smooth, curled inside the kitchen fan. I heard, clear as if she was behind me, my mother, "Come back." I must have blacked out. I don't remember falling. 1 second I was at the counter. The next I was on the floor with my cheeks stuck to the tile. The soup was still steaming, but my clock said 1:01. My heart was banging like I'd run stairs. My mouth tasted like metal. The smell of antiseptic and lilies sat on my tongue. I told myself it was side effects. I called Travis, a friend of mine who works nights at the same hospital. "Hey, man," I said. "Weird question. Can you smell lilies through your phone?" He laughed and said, "You're fine. You had a scare. The brain does dumb stuff. Sleep it off." I lost a minute. "Yeah," he said. "You and every drunk in this city. Get some rest." I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch and watched my cheap wall clock. The second hand twitched around. When it clicked past the 12 to mark chapter 2, verse 00, the hand stuttered. I heard it. A tiny tick-stop, tick-stop. The TV was on the input screen, blue with white letters that swam a little. The speakers hissed. Already. The hiss rose slow and turned into that out-of-phase choir. The room went colder in a clean way, not drafty, like an OR, metal and soap and flowers. "Come back," my mother said again, and the word pulled on me like a belt. I had a kid picture on the side table. Emma. She's 8. She lives with her mom across town. Sundays are ours. We once danced in my kitchen to some dumb song about pineapples. Her hair stuck to her forehead in a whirl because it was hot. I held the picture frame like it would hold me in place. The choir rolled through me, and for a moment I was warm again, knees weak with it, and I saw the hallway from the hospital. Not this hospital here, the other one, the clean one, the white glow. The door was open. It lasted 1 minute. My microwave clock and my phone and the cheap wall clock all agreed. Then it was 2:01. The hiss fell off like someone turning a knob. The smell thinned, but it didn't leave. I checked my chest without thinking, and there were 2 red rectangles high on the left side where the defib pads had been. They had been faint at discharge. Now they were bright and hot. I ran cold water over a washcloth and pressed it there until it stopped hurting. The marks stayed. After that, every hour, on the hour, the minute took me. It was clean. 3 o'clock, gone. 4 o'clock, gone. I started setting a timer on my phone to watch it happen because that felt safer somehow. I stood up for a few of them to prove I had control. I did not. Once I woke up on my bed at a weird angle with my shoes still on and my door chain unhooked, even though I was alone and I never unlatch it. The air by the door was cold. The security bar leaned against the wall where I didn't leave it. I returned to the ER the second day because I needed someone to look at me like I was real. They did another EKG. It looked fine. I asked them to leave me hooked for an hour. The tech rolled her eyes but did it. At exactly 11 o'clock, the monitor beeped a warning in a voice, "Lead off," even though the leads were stuck to me. The tracing jittered, then smoothed into a flat line for maybe a second, maybe less. The alarm went off in that clipped hospital way. "Code blue," the speaker said from somewhere, delayed, like it was catching up. The tech swore and slapped my arm. The line went back to normal. "Artifact," she said when Dr. Guy came in. He moved. I hadn't. I asked for a chaplain. The hospital chaplain was a small woman with a polite smile and a cardigan. She asked if I wanted to pray. I said I wanted to stop hearing my dead mother. She said grief has long fingers. She put a hand on my shoulder during the 12 o'clock minute, and it went through her like cold water. She pulled back and tried to hide her hand in her sweater, rubbing it. I pretended not to see. She said she would add me to the list. By the third day, I was scared of my own apartment. Every door in that place has a cheap latch that sticks, except on the 00 minute. I'd hear it click. Bathroom. Closet. Front door. No footsteps. Just the hard metal sound and the hinge shift. A whisper of air, like someone sliding past. I jammed chairs under knobs. The chairs moved a fraction each time. Nothing dramatic. Just enough that when it was over, they weren't where I left them. I tried to crowd it out like you crowd out a bad dream. I took a book to the all-night diner by the highway. I sat at the counter where the coffee is. The waitress called me sweetie and topped me off too much. The radio over the grill played old songs with bad reception. At 1 o'clock, the big clock over the pies thunked. The lights did a small dim. The radio static lifted like a blanket, and that choir sound poured out, soft and slightly wrong, like a hymn sung by people who can't hear each other. The waitress shivered and rubbed her forearms. "You feel that?" she said to the fry cook. He said the HVAC was acting up. The back door swung and hit the stop, even though no one was there. Cold came in and slid around our ankles. My book slid off the counter with no one touching it. The waitress stared at the floor and said, "Jesus," under her breath. I smiled at her like this was normal for me, and then I went to the bathroom and threw up coffee. I bought a little heart monitor watch from a drugstore. At home, I hooked my phone up to record the living room. I pointed it at the door and walked around doing errands. At 4 o'clock, I blacked. When I came to at 4:01, I checked the footage. The video caught the minute as a stutter. Frames went strange. The door chain dropped by itself like a finger had lifted it. The deadbolt turned. The door opened 3 inches, then stopped like it hit a hand. Cold fogged a small circle on the inside of the door near the latch, the way your breath fogs a mirror. The fog was too high for a dog. It disappeared at 4:01. I saved the clip and then deleted it because I didn't want to have to prove anything to anyone. I called a priest. Not my priest. Just a church near my place. A guy with a deep voice answered. He came over with a little silver bottle and a book. He was kind. He went room to room. He sprinkled the water. It smelled like pool. He said Latin that sounded like a cough. He said some names I didn't know. When he finished, we stood and waited. At 8 o'clock, the smell of lilies rolled through the bedroom like a wave. He went pale. He put his hand on the headboard and breathed. We heard a voice in the living room say clear, clipped, and tinny like it came through a radio. He didn't come back after that. He told me to talk to my doctor again. I called a neurologist Travis knew from nights. She let me wear an EEG cap for a day. She did it as a favor, after hours, in a room that smelled like coffee. She stuck the little pads to my scalp and joked about alien hats. I sat and watched my own brainwaves bounce on a screen. At 10 o'clock, all the lines tightened like belts. The out-of-phase choir rose from the computer fans. The air went clean. The printout made a dark gap, not flat, not seizure, just less. For 1 minute I was less here. When I came back, the doc had her hand on my knee and a face like she smelled smoke. "I'm going to send this to a friend," she said. "Try to rest. Keep a journal." I didn't write. I counted. I counted 6 days of this. Every hour. Every day. It didn't get longer. It got heavier. The voice stopped sounding like my mother's some of the time, and more like a shape that wore her sound. It said the same thing. Come back. Sometimes it added, "We're waiting," or "It's okay." Once, in the middle of the night, it said my own name, the way I say it to myself in my head. I started to keep my shoes on all the time because I would wake at weird angles. The defib marks on my chest faded in the spaces between hours and then flared back red at 00, like someone pressed hot stamps there again. I taped gauze over them. The tape didn't stick at 00. It peeled up and fell like my skin was sweating, but it wasn't sweat. It was just cold. I tried to stay with people. I slept on Travis's couch because he said I was scaring myself. At 3 a.m., his apartment beeped a single thin tone like a monitor. He laughed and hit his smoke detector with a broom handle. The tone didn't stop. It shifted into a woman's voice. Charging, then a man. Resumed compressions. All chopped up like someone had cut a recording randomly and glued it back together. Travis didn't laugh after that. He sat on the edge of the couch and watched me for a minute. His breath came out in little white clouds. After that, he was busy. I walked the mall. I rode the bus. I got on the subway for the lunch rush. At 1 o'clock, it was all the same. People shivered and rubbed their arms. Someone said, "Do you feel that?" And someone else said no. The doors I passed unlatched and bumped and then closed. No one I know would say this out loud, but I will. The world pushed at me. It pushed my shoelaces loose. It pushed my keys toward the dish by the door where I would forget them. It pushed the draft under doors to find me. It was all soft, but it was steady, like being nudged into a lane. On the 7th night, the city went dark. It was a storm out somewhere else, not even here. But the grid coughed, and everything blinked out all at once. My building's emergency lights came on, that sterile white that makes you look dead in the face even when you're fine. I was brushing my teeth when it happened. The electric hum dropped and the choir slipped in clean, without a seam. The lilies hit hard. Antiseptic, too. I opened my door to look down the hall, and my door let itself open at 10:59, like it always did. The hall was lit with the same white as the hospital. It made the scuffs on the walls look like fresh prints. I grabbed my keys out of habit and went for the stairs because the elevator was a dead mouth in the wall. The stairwell had 3 emergency strips that threw light like knives. It was silent except for that faraway coding voice that you can never quite make out unless you've heard it in person. "Code blue," someone said, clipped. A second voice said time, and then static. A third voice said mark, like a Q. At the landing between floors, the air went twice as cold. Not winter cold. Disinfected cold. Oxygen cold. My breath fogged and I could see it. Little clouds. The lilies were strong enough to taste. My chest ached where the pads go. The emergency light around the next turn didn't look like a normal needs-to-pass fire code light. It looked like daylight from the wrong kind of window. It had the same quality as the place I went for that minute. It wasn't bright. It was even. It made the dust look like snow. "Come back," my mother said below me, above me, inside the light. I could hear her breath between the words, the small catch she always had at the end of a laugh. I took a step down. My keys rang against the railing and went quiet like I had entered carpeting, but there was no carpet. The stairwell was metal and painted cinder block like always. The handrail was warmer than the air, like someone had just run a hand along it a second before mine. "Come back," she said again. "We're here." The choir was all around and not really singing. It didn't feel like a trick. It felt like a door. The thing is, that minute had been the only time in years I hadn't felt tired. I took another step. I felt tears, because my body is an idiot. I thought about walking into it and just letting it take me, and I thought about how nice it would be to stop being tugged every 60 minutes, like a dog on a leash by a distracted owner. The tugs had rubbed me raw. Then my phone vibrated in my pocket, which shouldn't have been possible with power out, but maybe there was a little charge left. I don't know. It was a text from Emily, my ex. It said, "Can you do Sunday? Emma wants pancakes." The bubble under it said, "She drew you a picture? It's very serious." I stopped on the landing. I put my hand on the emergency bar of the next door, and it felt clean through my palm, like it connected to a whole other network of air. I could have pushed it and gone into the glow. I could see the angle of the hallway beyond, how it opened just the way the ICU hallway had opened. I could see the shadow of a person's shoulder on the wall at the bend. The shoulder was exactly the height my mother used to make on the kitchen wall at dusk, when the sun would come in low and long. "Come back," she said, and she sounded tired, like she knew I was stalling. I said out loud, "In the stairwell," because that's where this had brought me. I can't. Not yet. My voice sounded like it does when I say no to Emma about another cookie. Low. Final. It surprised me. I said, "I have to stay for her. I have to make pancakes." Not yet. The light didn't snap off. That would have been dramatic and stupid. It just eased. The clean cold peeled back like air, leaving a room. The lilies thinned until all I smelled was old paint and dust. The choir unbraided itself into the cheap buzz of the exit sign. I held the bar until my fingers hurt, and then I let go. My chest burned and cooled. The defib marks on my skin pulsed once and went dull. There was a feeling like a door closing, gently, with a soft latch that doesn't stick. Above me, below me, somewhere else. My mother sighed, the little laugh sigh she did when I did something dumb but good. Something green, exit signed, hummed. The building creaked like it always does. The code stopped speaking. The hour clicked over to 11:01, and I was still in the stairwell with my keys and my bad breath. I went back up. I sat on the top step because my legs were weak. The emergency light stayed on, that ugly white. Somewhere a generator kicked into itself like a cough. My phone battery was at 9% and dropping. I texted Emily back, yes to Sunday. I typed, "Tell her I want chocolate chips," and my hands shook enough that I misspelled it twice. The minute still comes. Every hour, I still feel that tug, but it's softer now, like it lost my scent for a second and has to find it again. The door is still unlatched sometimes. The smell still rolls through at odd moments like someone walked by wearing too much cologne. The choir and the electronics is more like a hum in the walls. I don't trust any of it. I keep my shoes on. I keep my keys in my pocket. I don't let myself stand in doorways at 59. I know where the other door is now. I know I could go when I'm done here. That makes it worse and better at the same time. But the pull changed when I said not yet. It heard me. Or something did. Sunday came. I made pancakes burned on one side because she talked the whole time and I couldn't watch the heat. Emma smeared syrup on her face and showed me her picture. It was me and her under a lumpy sun. My eyes were 2 dots. I taped it to the fridge. The clock over the stove clicked to 12 o'clock and did its little stutter, and we didn't notice because the smoke alarm went off and she shrieked and I laughed and I forgot the choir for a minute. Then it was 12:01. That's what I've got. I was dead for a minute and they got me back. I wanted to go again because it felt like home and because here is hard. There's something on the other side and it's not nothing. It smells like lilies and it feels like warm hands on your face. It will not stop asking. It's patient. It will wait. For now, I'm staying because someone small asked me for pancakes. When the lights go strange, I tell it. Not yet. And when it opens the door a crack, I hold it shut with one hand and count to 60, and then I let go. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, feed the algorithm, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. It's the only way to keep the stories coming. And if you're brave enough, there's another one waiting right after this. See you on the next one.